Okay, so here we're going to be making I think it's called a Pachmayr pistol case. There's an example of one here. It's a smaller one. We're going to make it a bigger one that's going to fit this case. It's going to be able to hold the client's handguns. I've never done one like this before, so we're just going to try our best with this. We're going to have to make these crazy cuts. I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to how I'm going to do this, but we're going to be using either some poplar or some oak. We're probably making two of them. We're going to do one to start out with, and then we'll try to like mock something up. So we're going to use this white oak that I have laying around. I'm going to run through the planer. We're going to cut it down first, and then we'll start cleaning it up. We also have this poplar. All right, let's go. Let's start at least trimming some of this. What else that we have? Okay, so our measurements are, they say 18 3/8 here. We're going to do 18 and a half. And then the top and bottom, we're going to do 13 and a half rather than 13 and a quarter. We actually, we'll probably do the 13 and a quarter, but this we're going to do a little longer. We'll do 18 and a half because the little case here is a little longer with the drawer slides. So we're going to add that in and take that in consideration, and then we'll do some cuts when we get everything. We're going to build one big box to start out with. So we're going to just mill up at least 4 pieces of wood, and then we're going to just start laying them out. Okay, so here's our measurements. So we're going to be cutting 4 pieces at 18 3/8. Actually, we're going to do 18 and a half because the case is a little bigger. And we also got to take consideration of the little drawer slides. So then we're also going to be doing height up and down. We're going to do 13 and 1/4. Thickness is going to be about a 1/2 inch when we're all said and done. Maybe a little more, maybe closer to 3/4 possibly. We're going to mill up some lumber. We're going to be using some white oak and some poplar possibly. We're just going to try to mill some. We're going to just build a box to start out with. All right, let's go. Okay, so like most orders, we're going to start at the sawmill. So here we got some poplar. I also bought some more white oak. That was previous to build the first box in part 1, which is white oak. That one came out okay. It's not great. I'm not 100% happy with it. So this one we're going to try to make a little nicer. This poplar one, it's going to be a little lighter for one. The white oak is very heavy, almost too heavy. So the poplar one's still going to be fairly heavy since it's a pretty big box. It's going to have a drawer inside it and also the metal drawer slide that the client provided. So you see these pieces are very wide. So from the oak one I didn't cut these down. I cut them to length, but I didn't. What I'm going to do in this one, as you'll see later, is I'm going to cut these, rip down the center, and then re-laminate them after I run through the planer, get the final thickness and get them smoothed out, since my planer will not fit anything more than 13 inches. So these boxes are going to be about 13 and a half to 14 inches in height. So these side pieces are just too big to go through the planer. So we're going to mill these up, but then we're going to run them through the table saw, and then we're going to re-laminate them after we get the final thickness. And that's where we're at now. We're just going to run this popper through the milling process, which, like I said, usually consists of table saw, jointer, miter saw, planer, and then rip it down, and then we're going to laminate. As you can see here, we're just going to lay them out. I'm going to mark them here just so I know that I have the same grain pattern, and also it's a seamless fit. Like, so you can't even tell them apart after we re-laminate these. And that's what we're doing here. We're just going to mark them. Now we're just going to trim them up, and then we're going to get ready to laminate and also cut the side pieces. So for this box, we're going to do a little different. We're not going to just be doing like a cabinet build, small cabinet. We're going to be using miter joinery, but we're going to, like I said, run it through the milling process first. This lumber's pretty rough, and I want to get it down to about just over 1/2 inch of thickness. As you can see here, we're going to start laminating the big pieces after we run them through the planer here, so that way we have our final thickness here. We just got to sand it after the fact. Okay, you can see here we're going to be setting our table saw here to 45 degree, and we're going to be using miter cuts. So we're going to be building this box essentially around this slide. So we have to take consideration the width of and the length of this pistol slide that was provided by the client. So we have to take the half inch off each end for the 45-degree angle, so that the box will lay on top of it, so we can slide in and out. So we just got. It's a little tricky doing this because it's not just like the other one. I could just kind of measure it out, the bottom and top to match the slide. This I have to take consideration the 45-degree angle. So got to minus at least an inch, since each piece of wood's just over a half inch. So in here we're going to be using, like I said, mainly the table saw, but you can also use the your track saw with your track, as long as you can set your guide and your blade to 45 degree, which this track saw is pretty simple. It's just 2 knobs on the end. You turn them counterclockwise, and you can set your blade like we're doing here. And it's a fairly easy cut. And I'm going to use the track saw for these long pieces that are just too long to cross cut on the table saw. Some of these, I mean, they would work, but I just think it's also good to show that you could do it with a track saw. So I could do all these cuts essentially with a track saw if you don't have a good table saw, or you could do it all with a table saw if you don't have a track saw. So just showing you the availability and the versatility of some of these tools, and your options when you're putting stuff together. So here, as you can see, we have our slides are going to fit in here. We're going to cut. So now we got, like I said, we got to take in consideration the 45-degree angle here. So it's going to make the box a little bit bigger than the other one, just so I had to make sure everything fit perfectly to fit around. So essentially, we're building this box to fit around the slide that was provided by the client, if that makes sense. So here we're just going to clean everything up, cut everything, get everything ready for assembly, which we're going to be doing a fold assembly with some glue and clamps. So that will be next after we get everything cut. So this part here, I'm going to do a fold process, and I'm not going to do a full 4-piece fold here, just because I just think it's a little easier to get the top, bottom, and sides put in place, and then we'll put the top piece on. That way we can make sure everything's nice and square. It just makes it a little easier to handle too. This is a pretty big fold for me. I like to usually do smaller, like floating shelves and things like that, with this. But this is 14 inches high essentially, or so. So I like to just try to keep it like a little simpler. So we're just going to do the 3-piece fold here, and then we're going to put the other piece on top after we get it dried to a certain extent. And this is pretty tough to do because it's her holding these pieces up. So we're just going to clamp, make sure everything's square. So I don't know if I'll show this in every part of this video, but we will have a square available. Make sure it stays nice and straight and square. And then we're going to put the top piece on now. Just going to glue it, rub it in, and then we're just going to lay it on. And then we're going to clamp all 4 sides. Just make sure that it stays straight And it's also it just ensures that everything will stay nice and square, like I said. So that's what we're doing here. Okay, so it's the next day. The box is almost done, I guess, essentially. So now we're going to put the two sides on, the ends, we'll call them, and we're just going to glue these in. These are obviously all mitered, and they're going to fit just right on each end here, give the waterfall effect, going on all sides and tops and bottoms of this box. So just it will be a big cube. So that's what we're doing here. We're just going to glue it up, and then we're going to clamp the ends nice and tight, make sure everything stays straight and square. And that's all we're doing here. It's pretty simple and self-explanatory here. And then we'll clean up any miter gaps and things later. Okay, you can see we have a couple little gaps here. It's not perfect, so what we're going to do, we're going to burnish these gaps. All you need here is a good rounded tool, whether it be like a big rounded file or a big screwdriver, some glue. A little sawdust helps too, and also you'll sand it at the end. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to burnish these in to fix anything, and anything that has like an overlap. The one side does have an overlap. We're just going to run the router over just to straighten it all out. So that's all we're doing here. We're just going to, like I said, add a little glue and just burnish these in, and it will close these gaps. And it works pretty well. I've never had an issue with this, and it's pretty common in woodworking. There's a lot of good videos out there to watch, and that's how I pretty much learned this. This step is from other YouTube makers. So I would definitely look at other people that do a way better quality video than this on this step at least. So that's all we're doing here. We're just going to burnish these ends on gaps and clean these up, and then we're going to run a sander over it. And you won't even notice that there was a gap. That's the goal, at least. Quarter. Okay, so here to me is the worst part of this project, where you got to cut this box open now, and it's not just a straight cut. It's going to be a straight cut on the top and bottom. So we're going to start with the bottom first, which is going to be about an inch gap here. We're going to cut. We're going to cut it pretty deep though, because then the angle cut will go to the top. So next we'll cut the top, and then we'll cut our angle, which I wouldn't say is about a 30-something degree angle here to match. And that's the goal here. So we're going to cut this. There's different ways you can cut this. Some people cut the face of the bottom and then cut into it. Probably would have been easier in a way. Looking back now, so this is definitely a learning process. There's really, I couldn't find any videos on the builds of these. So if somebody has a link to that, that'd be great. So this wasn't easy. So what we have to do, we have to cut with a handsaw and a jigsaw just to match that 90-degree angle cut into a 30-degree angle cut, or whatever this angle is with the track saw. I do have a template laid out for this, but it didn't really make too much of a difference considering that it needs to match the lines from the bottom to top, no matter what. So that's what makes this tricky. So then you have to close this thing when you reopen it with hinges and everything. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to get this all cut up. We're going to sand it down, especially the inside. We're going to sand it down with this little detail sander, which is pretty awesome for this, especially in these little corners. Get the glue, and then we're going to run a 60 grit sander on the insides to clean up, like I said, all the glue. So now, here we're going to do, we're going to get our piano hinge. I just cut this on a miter saw. You probably see that in part one. You could cut this metal or aluminum, whatever it is, on your miter saw. It's not something I like to do, but you can do it. So here we're going to chisel out our slot for these hinges to lay, not just flat, but they need to lay inside the box, so it's a little more seamless when you close it eventually. So that's what we're going to chisel this out. You probably run a router on this, but I just think it's a little easier, not easier, but a little, I guess, cleaner to run a chisel. Because a router, if you slip once, you're rebuilding the box. So a chisel you can kind of control a little more, in my opinion. So we're just going to countersink with our center finding bit here, and we're just going to start screwing in. We're not going to screw in all the way yet. We're just going to put a few in, just to make sure everything lays straight and closes good, and then we'll screw everything in permanently. Because we're going to take this thing apart a couple times just to make sure everything stays good here. So the idea of this is to lay flat on top and then to close completely on the bottom, so there's not too much of a gap. And the gaps we'll clean up with a sander if we need to, but the top is very important that it lays flat, since it has to, as part of the whole idea of this competition box. People will lay a scope on it, which we'll show later. Not the scope, but we'll show the idea of it. So now we're going to be we're going to build a drawer box, and for this I'm just going to be using some box joints. It's a small little drawer box. It's real thin poplar to match the rest of the box, and we're just going to be using fingered box joints to assemble this. So we're going to be using a jig here if we get our measurements, and we're just going to be using a dado cut on the sides to lay on these wood slides as we're milling up here. All right, so we're going to mill the drawer box up now, and then we're going to, like I said, be using box joints for this. You see here, I'm keeping this fairly simple. I'm just using this little box jig here, box cut jig, and it's pretty simple. There's a lot of videos showing you how to do this, and maybe I'll make one to show how I build some of my drawer boxes this way. And this little one's kind of cool to do it this way because it's a little more easily managed. So it has a nice little touch to it. So here we're going to be cutting in. So first we dry fit it, as you can see. So now we're going to be cutting in our bottom groove. And this will hold the bottom of the drawer box. So we're just going to be cutting 2 passes per kerf blade, so it comes out to about 1/8 or a little over 1/8 thickness to receive the little piece of plywood here. We're going to cut to the final length and width here, and then we're going to do our glue up and put this drawer box together. And it goes together pretty simple. Just got to take your time here, make sure everything stays nice and square, and just tap everything in gently. And those boxes joints should come together good. You need no screws or brad nails or anything for this if it goes together correctly. So this came together real simple, in my opinion. We had to clean up a little bit the ends here, and which we'll show you later. So now we're going to be putting our little slides in, and all this is going to be a piece of wood, the thickness of our dado cut we're going to be doing on the side, which I'll show you later after we clean these joints up. And it's just a little easier to run through the detail or the sander here. Bench top sander. It just makes it a little easier to sand this down. And then we're going to sand down the inside, clean up all the glue, and now we're going to be doing this sketchy cut here, this will receive our slide that we're going to be installing a little piece of wood I think it came out to about 5/8 of an inch. So that's where we're cutting the dado here. We're going to be cutting with our little jig here that I created real quick. Um, it wasn't a fun cut, but it was definitely a little easier, believe it or not, than cutting this little piece of wood straight. So for the next part though, wasn't as fun because we had to kind of do a stop cut, kind of drop it down. And so now we're going to be using little spacers here, and we're going to lay out our slide. And just we're going to brad now this in, make sure it stays nice and square, and then we'll slide our box in. And easy as that, we have our drawer, our second drawer box in. So the other one will be the metal one provided by the client that we'll just screw in the bottom later. So that's it. We're just going to put this together. We'll put a little handle on it too. We're just going to put like a little makeshift handle on, kind of rustic looking, just to match the rest of the assembly here. So that's about it. And so this came out pretty good. Here we're going to find the center of the drawer box, which is going to be just under 9.5. So we're just putting this little handle on, and we're just using a right angle drill bit here, extension, since it's just a small box. And now we're going to just sand everything down to about 120 grit, just to get it nice and cleaned up. Then we're going to put some mineral oil on everything, and just to give it a little burn protection. Also darkens the wood a little bit, almost looks like a stain. Makes the poplar look a little darker, which I think looks great since we're not staining this as of right now. So we're just going to put some mineral oil on. Put my little logo on here, and then we're going to start getting ready to start buttoning everything up on this with our hardware, and we're going to finish this with some Osmo. But right now we're going to be putting our client provided drawer box in here. It's just a metal slide box, and it fits perfectly. As you can see, we just put a little spacer on the bottom, and we're just going to screw in the drawer slides in as we slide it out. It's pretty simple. And there it is. So we have both our boxes in. So our interior is pretty much done for the most part here. So, we're going to, besides putting some, like I said, some Osmo on, which we're going to finish up at the end after we put our hardware on. So that's next. We're going to start our hardware now, and we're going to lay out. We're going to be putting some locks on, not locks, but like little side pieces on, and also we're going to be putting this handle on the top, and we're just going to lay this out. So this build has been pretty challenging. It's definitely taking me out of my comfort zone a little bit here. So I made a lot of mistakes, especially on the first one. The white oak definitely was a little less unforgiving, especially with chiseling. So that one didn't come out as nice as I would like, but it's definitely functional. But this one came out a little bit nicer. Poplar's a little more forgiving on your tools. It's easier to chisel things out. It's easier to cut. It's a little lighter too. Even though it's a pretty big box, it still has a little weight to it. So we're going to just, like I said, put everything together, all this hardware. The client provided all this also. So we're going to put this top handle on, then we're going to put these little latches on the sides just to hold this thing closed. And then we're eventually going to have to put a lock on, but I'm not sure when we're going to do that. It's not going to be part of this build. I think the client's going to do that later. But that's what we're doing here. We're just going to put these little side pieces on. So like I said, I learned a lot with this build, made a lot of mistakes on both boxes, and kind of had to figure out on the fly, working kind of blind on this. So from the first box, like we just not cutting those side pieces was definitely not ideal, because that box ended up being like the wood ended up being just about 3/4 inches thick, a little over. So white oak is very heavy. So that was one lesson learned. Also, I think the miter joints look a little cleaner. Um, this came out a lot cleaner, and also the way I cut it. I cut the angles. I cut the bottom first, which made it a little easier to line up the top cut after I cut the angles, 30-degree angles with the track saw. So here we're just going to be finishing everything up with some Osmo, like I mentioned, and this came out really nice. Hopefully the client loves this. Hopefully, I like it. I'm actually pretty pleased with this one. I'm not as pleased with the other one, so I'll probably just give that to him for free if he wants it. So I'll have 2 boxes, but I'm definitely going to work on this oak one a little bit longer. I'm going to put like a little drawer box in and do a little cleanup on that, a little more sanding. And maybe I'll keep it myself, honestly. So the idea of this box is, it's called a competition gun pistol box. I think it's called a Pachmayr. It's hard to find these. Supposedly the client said he kind of reached out to me through my website, asked if I can help him out, and I really didn't want to take this because I'm more of a furniture builder. This is kind of like a little different, but I'm kind of glad I did. It definitely pushed me. Definitely a learn experience. And maybe this would be something that we can market and sell. I have to do a little more research on how to build these, and also where they come from. And I'm not even sure really how to even price this. But it came out nice. And like you see here, we're just going to lay it out. So the top part here, as you see when it lays flat, this is where you could mount scopes up top here. And also this is where you hold your pistols here, as you can see. So the pistols will be here, and he'll be able to carry this around, transport it, and then you can put your ammo or whatever in the top drawer, or just other things, whatever. It's just a nice little complimentary piece. It didn't need to really be in there, but I decided to put it in there just to match kind of with the smaller one he sent me. Had a couple little things in there, but it also didn't have the metal slide. So these latches work really good. It cinches it close. The hinge, it's not the highest quality hinge, but it definitely works. It definitely closes, and the handle is pretty sturdy. I like the little texture on it. It's a little comfort level, especially with something this heavy. When you load it up with guns, this thing might be about 50 pounds or so carrying it around. So this is the take to the range, and to the top here. You could put your scope here, and that's the idea of it. I think people will use this as not just a carrier, but also as a tool for when they're shooting at the range. They could put their scopes on there, and it's versatile. So hopefully this works out good for this client, and they like it. And I want to thank you all if you watch this video. If you have any recommendations or any links to these type of boxes, I definitely can learn from this. And if you have any questions, let me know. And thanks for watching.